We're running a few minutes late here, and at this point, we can stand and have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we can have a moment of silence in recognition of a few people: Janice Seagraves, daughter of Officer Ken Seagraves; Pat Martin, former custodian; Lou Holly, former teacher; Mike Quinn, former student; and others in our community who have suffered a loss of a loved one. Thank you. We have the roll reported. And standing committee reports. I know everybody has reports out. Are there any changes, starting with academics?
No, there are no changes, but I'd like to praise a few people. I saw an article in the paper about future engineers. There were students in Justin Cass engineering class. They were contacted by Green Atlantic Energy Partner, and a challenge was issued to students in this class to have a contest, and they were asked to design a ground mount solar array. I don't even know what that is, and these kids created them. And there were 5 students who won a team, and the winning team received $500. So that was Justin Cass engineering class, and it was the last names were the students were Michael West, Pastor Collins, Stephen Montiero Brown, and Louis Diaz. So congratulations to Mr. Cass.
Mrs. Ellison, any changes or comments on the policies?
No changes on the policies. Only one comment regarding a policy that we approved in November. I just wanted to let the public know that under the policy regarding students entering our kindergarten grade level, and testing used to be part of the policy for people who want early admission. And I just wanted to remind people that that policy has been changed, that there is no testing for early admission. And there are a group of students that will be grandfathered in and had a previous agreement for testing to enter first grade. But that is the only exception that's being made, and it's just for this year.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Orange, any comments or changes with the athletic committee?
The only thing that could be considered a change is that the original proposal for television rights to Eastern athletic events, home events, we suggested originally $1,000, and for tape delay we suggested $500, and we've kind of the athletic event kind of rebuilt that with the help of the rest of the board, and we're now at $500 for live television, $300 for tape delay, and everything else seems to be the same as was discussed earlier in the committee.
Thank you. Voting grounds, Mr. Pinto.
We just have one update. At the committee meeting, we discussed the intercom system of the 5th, 6th building gymnasium. We were looking at going out to get prices. It was going to come in around $8,500. We decided we're able to take 2 speakers tied into the intercom system and correct the issue that we have, and it would only cost about $1,000 to $1,500. That's the only change that we have.
And that's reflected in the agenda.
There was no agenda item.
Right, so it's not there. Very good. Under finance, there's no changes. And at this point, I have to go over the agenda real quickly, based on our executive session. Under 8C, response to the level 4 grievance. When we get there, the motion is going to be denied. That's what I'll be asking for. Under the staffing resolution, under D, we're changing wording there. We're dropping the words professional. We're adding the words all staffing. We're dropping the word temporary. Again, all. And just for general information, this covers all employees of the district. And I will, at this time, call on Mr. Floyd. Do you want to just say a few words to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make it clear that this resolution is not any official part of a reduction in force process necessarily, but rather an overall direction to administration to return recommendations with regard to staffing needs. If there are such recommendations, they would come at a later time, but this is not any official part of it.
Thank you. And last but not least, I overlooked this one. Under 8, I will be breaking out the administrative elections separate from all the other items that we'll be voting on. I think that covers all the changes. So with that being said, I'm going to ask for a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
We have a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Minutes. We've had the minutes listed and everything. And can I ask for an approval of the minutes? And if there's any corrections, please note them.
Mr. President, so moved.
Here? Second. Second, a motion and a second. Again, any comments or questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? At this point, we're opening the floor to anybody that would like to address the board, and ask that you please come, state your name, and obviously the subject. And at this point, it's restricted to agenda items only. Is there anybody that would like to address the board this evening? Yes. Mr. Anderson.
My name is Drew Anderson. Thank you very much, sir. We've got 3 policy items on personnel on the agenda. Previously, the solicitor expected you to reach a standard of excellence to prevent future involvement in court. And I'm reminded just recently you haven't gotten out of a situation which I think is absurd, where the individual is dead wrong and you happen to be dead right. With that said, you've got 3 policies, I think, that have common words in them, which is not good enough. And the words are, any candidate's misstatement of fact, materiality, qualifications for employment or determination of salary shall be constitute grounds for dismissal by the board. That's gobbledygook. Now, I sat in the HR seat for a number of years, and it's the kind of stuff that gets you in trouble. Let me give you some real quick examples. Dr. Moskaitis, let's assume the board gets a package from it about an outstanding candidate, a single most candidate, of course, and a single page is missing from that material, except HR's got it. How do you feel about the missing page? Now let's go past that one. The next one you get, and these are fictitious to protect the guilty. You've got an outstanding candidate for Director of Plant Operations, and he's got an ABD from Lehigh in art history. Now, some of you know what an ABD is. Now, it turns out that his AB status is about as accurate as my telling you that my Swedish and Farsi is up to date. But the real question is, art history, plant operations, what does that have to do with the material fact? You remove him or don't you remove him? 2 from my own experience. Job description mandates 4 years prior litigation experience before the Public Utility Commission of Pennsylvania. We have an outstanding female attorney with 3 years experience, and I recommend her. and I get a call that says, Mr. Anderson, you're nuts. The job description calls for 4 years. Shut up. Okay. So the division goes out and hires somebody from Virginia, licensed in Pennsylvania, never practiced in Pennsylvania a day in her life. We paid to move her to Pennsylvania. Her boyfriend's in Roanoke, Virginia, and I can tell you what the outcome is of that situation. But after all, we had a clear requirement. Next one, Vice President National Sales. Outstanding person in the job, BS from University of Chicago, 20 years experience, worked for several leading competitors, and somebody says, you can't find her transcript. Now, to be a vice president of national sales, you don't need a high school degree. But we can't find her transcript. First suggestion. There isn't. Second suggestion, go find it. Third suggestion, here's your resignation. Please sign it. Your requirement here should be a lot clearer in terms of it should be any misstatement or inaccuracy shall be grounds for dismissal for cause. No latitude in terms of, well, some candidates we fudge and other candidates we don't fudge. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Make it perfectly clear.
Thank you.
Just Mr. Anderson, what specific policy were you referring to with that language?
I'm sorry?
What specific policy number were you?
You've got 3 of them there, one for superintendent, one for administrative staff, and one for teachers. All the language is the same. I think as solicitor, you could have much better language for your client so there's no ambiguity. And you really don't want the board involved in a public fishbowl over Mr. Anderson's missing credentials. You want to say, Mr. Anderson, if you can't find them, here's your resignation. Thank you very much.
That's good. Is there somebody else that would like to address the board this evening? Not seeing any hands. Okay, we're going to move on then. Under reports, superintendent report.
At this time, I would like to applaud Mr. Cup and the National Honor Society students, and also our debate team with Mr. Capone, and one of our seniors is also going to be here, Kia. So I would like our National Honor Society to come forward to the podium, and also our debate team. And the first is going to be our National Honor Society team.
Hi, my name is Shiva Reddy. I'm the president of our high school chapter of the National Honor Society. With me are Brennan Scott, vice president, Bill Waters, treasurer, and Emily Mascaritolo and Alexis Donaldson, secretaries. Every year, the Honor Society organizes a large group project involving all of its 200 plus members. And this year, we decided to participate in the Martin Luther King Day of Service project, sponsored by the Volunteer Center of the Lehigh Valley. It's something that we also took part in last year. For this project, all of us in the Honor Society visited all 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade classes in the school district over the span of 3 weeks from January 24th to February 9th. As a school, in groups of 2 to 5 high school students per classroom, we read to the classes the book My Brother Martin. It's a children's book written by Dr. King's older sister, Ms. Christine King Ferris. The book itself describes King's earlier years in his childhood and how he formed the ideas at a young age of how he wanted to do something about discrimination. After reading to the kids, we led discussions and performed activities that had to do with the message portrayed in the book. We discussed with the kids how the world could be made more peaceful in the ways in which they themselves could create peace. Our first activity with the students was the creation of dreamscapes, which are being passed around. And those were their own illustrations of what they thought to be their own vision for a peaceful world. After that, we also had the kids prepare cards with notes of thanks that will be sent to wounded servicemen in honor of Dr. King's commitment to service. Overall, the experience for all of us volunteering students was really memorable. It allows us to work in a classroom setting almost as teachers. For many of us, it was as the first time, and it showed us the influence that we could have on younger kids. And obviously for the younger students, it gave them a great lesson on one of our country's heroes and the positive principles that you want the world to live by. This project wouldn't have been possible without the contributions from the Volunteer Center. In particular was Ms. Christina Cardinal, who took charge in fundraising for the project, since this year we did not receive the monetary grant that we got last year. And we also want to give our thanks to the administration and the building principals of all the participating schools, especially Mr. Cook and Ms. Cassis, and all the teachers as well for allowing us to take part in this memorable project for us. And with me is also Sarah Lutz. She's the president of the Middle School National Honor Society, and she'll talk about her experience with the project.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lutz, and I'm currently serving as the National Junior Honor Society President for the East Marion Middle School 7-8. Today I want to give you a recap of our mentoring experience on the Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We were originally charged with sharing historical information with the young students of Shawnee Elementary School. The focus was specifically geared towards Martin Luther King Jr. and the impact his life had on the idea of equal rights. We started with a reading of My Brother Martin, as the high school students did, and then a drawing activity depicting the students' ideas of peace. The day concluded with authoring letters of thanks addressed to the troops serving overseas. Overall, it was a day focused on gratitude and recognition of service, a time of reflection that gave us the opportunity to extend our appreciation. As a token of remembrance dedicated to MLK, the students all received t-shirts at the end of the day. As the day progressed and the students started to open up, the discussion evolved into a sharing of their hopes and dreams. We watched as their eyes lit up, bright with visions of peace and equality. We talked about things they would change. Bullying, fighting, and war would be things of the past. Hatred and violence would only exist in their history books. We could feel the excitement grow as they described a future filled with unconditional love, free of oppression. The feedback and reactions from the students after hearing the story we read to them reminded us all that things really had changed from Martin Luther King Jr.'s era. The students were surprised to hear that people with different skin colors were not permitted to be together. This fact seemed foreign to them. After explaining the reasoning for the separation, I felt a swell of pride, perhaps just what Martin Luther King Jr. had hoped for in the future years. Speaking for those of us who shared in this wonderful experience, I definitely think the visit was a success. I was reminded of a time not long ago, a time free of judgment and social restraint where dreams of tomorrow were limited by race, gender, and religion. After hearing these students speak about peace and MLK Jr., I truly noticed how our world has changed. I realized then that it was not about how much knowledge we were bringing to this young generation. It was actually about how much we got out of them. The presentation was about the sharing of universal hope and sometimes gets lost in the daily routine. Walking away with a renewed belief in the world was a great gift my peers and I were grateful to receive. Thank you.
I applaud all of you for your efforts. A job well done. In addition, I want to thank your teachers and also the principals and administrators and your parents, because you really are outstanding individuals, so thank you. Great job. The next presentation will give us a little insight into the debate team. I had the privilege of being at the high school and seeing the outstanding students, and I want to also thank Mr. Capone and all the teachers that are instrumental in the debate team. And this individual that is going to come forward is a senior. And Akia, I think that you have done just an outstanding job. And I welcome you, and I hope that you have many opportunities to share your wealth of knowledge. You are just an outstanding individual.
Right. I'm just going to quick explain the background of the debate, and then Akia will go into her experiences. This evening, we're a member of the LVIAC Debate League. The schools we traditionally compete with in athletics, we also compete with in debate. The type of debate we do is called cross-examination, and it's very similar to a court case. Each team is making a constructive argument, and then the other team is cross-examining to try to poke holes into their argument. We go through that cycle twice, and at the end, we have a closing rebuttal. The team practices 2.5 hours a week on a scheduled basis, and most weeks, on the other days where there's a late bus, I have students with me until the late bus practicing for debate. throughout the league, throughout the season, we travel to the other schools in the league to compete against them. And at the end of the season, we have what we call a showcase round, where we get to see them one last time and any ties are resolved. And following that, which actually just happened yesterday, was the semifinal and final round, where the number one team from the whole league is determined. And that's the really quick version of what the debate team is, and I'll turn it over to Claire.
My name is Aquia Bonsu. I'm a senior at East Marion High School, and I'm on the debate team. I remember my first year on debate team. I was a sophomore, painfully shy, perennially nervous, presumably out of my element. I didn't know a rebuttal from a resolve, a cross from a constructive, a subpoint from a signpost. Lost in all the debate jargon and feeling a little unneeded as a lowly alternate, I felt like an outsider looking in on this abstract world of debate inhabited by my teammates who seemed so much more at ease than I could ever be. The resolve was as follows. Institutions of higher education should examine any personal or public internet sites to determine the enrollment of prospective students. From delving deep into the topic at hand, scouring the internet for anything I could find, racking the brains of family and friends, trying to elicit new ideas on the topic, I learned a lot. I learned about the Ninth Amendment's implicit endowment of the right to privacy for all Americans, about the fact that many believe that Sung Hui Cho, the individual behind 2007's Virginia Tech massacre, could have been stopped had the school exercised the right to check his Facebook, that my own social networking account could be used for or against me, depending on what I posted and who was watching. Not only that, but outside the confines of debate, the confines of the subject matter, I learned from rising from an ordinary alternate to a semi-important cross-examiner that hard work really does pay off, and that Mr. Capone, our debate coach, hates verbatim reading. Undoubtedly, those are two tenets that have yet to leave me. My junior year, I graduated from a cross-examiner to a constructive speaker. My shyness subsided, and I was a lot more comfortable with my role on the team. As I prepared for yet another year, the resolve calling for the support of an open border system among America, Canada, and Mexico, however, things began to unravel. As I learned more about the nuances of the economies of the different countries at hand, I learned about the slight differences that could separate a team from winning or losing. A time deduction and seemingly taunting smirk here, a misspoken word and slip up there, cost us match after match after match. We went 1-15 that year. And although loss after loss smarted worse than the last, the stick-to-itiveness, importance of optimism, and belief I developed over that season contributed to my being able to take on a new leadership position the next. This year, I was a senior, a captain, and hungry for redemption. All that I learned inside and outside of debating was put to the proverbial test. Be it resolved, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania should abolish compulsory and public education in favor of voluntary private education. I, along with many others on my team, disagreed with the resolve vehemently. But calling on what I learned sophomore year, to commit myself wholeheartedly to a topic, and junior year, to have faith that I'd find a way to wrestle with the decision and actually align myself with it, I saw my team rise to success. Not only that, I learned lessons in leadership that I've applied to a variety of situations outside of debate, that making a decision and standing by it makes a difference, that encouraging and uplifting those around you goes a long way, that leading by example is imperative to fostering excellence. I also learned just how much our coach, Mr. Capone, trusted me, that support and counsel he offered me and my teammates, the genuine interest he took in fostering our success, has just stood out to me more so than any other year before. And without him, without his tough love, bluntness, and candor, I don't think this team would have reached even a fraction of its potential, let alone a 10-10 record to finish the season. In my experiences this year and previous years, I've learned so much, and the person I am today would be drastically different had I not been able to participate in such a character-building activity. Today, I can say that I'm no longer an outsider looking on the inside of that seemingly unconquerable debate world anymore. I have my experiences complete with struggles, triumphs, and many a time unheralded guidance to thank for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I must say, every day they say you should continue to learn, and obviously we are in an educational organization, and it was a privilege for myself and for anyone that had the opportunity to see the debate from your vantage point and for all the students. You truly inspire me. Keep up the great work.
Mr. Simonetti?
Yes, briefly, I just want to thank the board, appreciate the board for their indulgence in this anticipated budget development process. We are working diligently to put the information together to provide a clear, concise, and more detailed presentation, and we are hoping to do that at the March finance meeting.
Thank you. Roy? Nothing at this time. Mr. Tuck, I will call on you for an introduction.
Well, tonight we have more than one representative, but we have with us Brandon and Anna Ruggiero. I'm sorry, Anna. They're all here. I think our whole senior class is actually. If I could have the class of 2012, Brandon and Eric and Anna are speaking.
Hi, I'm Anna Ruggiero. I'm the treasurer of the student council. We held a blood drive for the Miller Keystone on February 3rd, and we had 46 donors and 138 lives were saved. So that's very good.
Great.
And we are holding the 2012 Gymnastics Special Olympics on March 7th, and we are also sponsoring the 2012 Mr. Easton contest on March 8th. Our students will be participating in a Safe Harbor volunteer on a Saturday in May to bring, prepare, and serve food, but the date is to be determined. And we will be filling 60 preemie Easter baskets for the NICU Lehigh Valley Hospital. And we will also have a booth at the Rover Fest for the March of Diamonds, and the March of Diamonds will be April 22nd at Jordan Park. Thank you.
Mrs. Nathan.
Good evening. Thanks to so many of you board members and district administration who attended our Founders Day celebration last night. It's always nice to recognize what PTA does, and it's a very important partnership with schools. We're very lucky in Easton to have such a strong partnership with our administration and with all of our schools. There are so many policies and programs that support children that exist because of PTA advocacy. March PTA did a lovely job last night, and especially so did their 3rd and 4th grade chorus. I always love to see the children when they sing. And I've been asked to pass on, please pay attention to the calendar, and when we do have, not PTA necessarily, but all the school events, when there are choir festivals or debate teams or anything, please try to come out and see them. It's really special to see why we're here and how well our students do. In terms of some of our current PTA news, from Forks PTA, with spring approaching way too fast, plans are being finalized for the new raised beds that were built by Lowe's last year. Their current plans are for lettuce and tomatoes and peppers, and PTA is coordinating all of the family volunteers to maintain the gardens over the summer break. Forks is also sponsoring their second annual Dad's Workshop. It's a free event for all Forks students and whatever male role model they bring, and they build Mother's Day gifts, which is really nice, so Mom doesn't have to buy her own gift there. It was well attended last year, over 125 people, hopefully a good turnout this year as well. 7-8 PTA just hosted a Mardi Gras dance to help pay for field trips, and they're also working with the PBIS committee to hold afternoon events for PSSA week with educational assemblies and so on. The high school PTSA has begun post-prom planning, and Dr. McGinley, who's very supportive of how hard this effort is, has approved Friday, May 23rd as the district's official dress-down day for post-prom. All Easton Area School District employees are asked if they're willing to donate $5 to dress down in support of our post-prom event. This is one of our largest and most complicated events that we do. We usually host over 500 students in a safe, alcohol-free environment, and I know lots and lots of people in this room will be there. Also, somebody mentioned Roverfest. The high school PTSA does sponsor Roverfest. We did the first one last year and looking forward to the second one. It will be held Saturday, June 2nd. All Easton Area School Districts groups are invited to rent booth space and be part of this. It's a carnival-like celebration, games, music, raffles, and it's open to the community. The PTSA is also helping to coordinate a summit of Lehigh Valley High School administrators to discuss issues that affect the health and safety of our students. They'll be discussing overviews of current student behaviors and trends and share strategies for success. They'll also be bringing in experts in the field of drug and alcohol education. I don't have dates on that at this point. Palmer PTA is holding their annual science fair tomorrow, weather permitting. 229 students participating, and the Da Vinci Science Center will also be there. Shawnee's had a number of fun family events, including a chili cook-off. I wish I had attended that one. And a recent bowling fundraiser. And Monday, March 5th, gosh, it's March. It's really, really soon. It's our Call to Action for Education Day, where we ask all of the PTA members to call. The Pennsylvania Department of Education starts budget hearings next week. Very important. We want more money. So we call in and we talk about, no offense, we talk about everything that isn't happening in the schools because we have no money, not to detract from our wonderful district. Thank you.
Let's see, Helen here. Is Helen here? No, I think, Jen, it's only you tonight.
I was reminded of something that I didn't include in our presentation. We will be moving shortly. Information is soon to follow, but you will all be invited to come see our new office, which is in the downtown area, which I'm over the moon about. We're looking to be an active member in this community, and being downtown is something that's important to us. Let's see if I can get Okay, Friday, March 2nd, millions of people, including Zac Efron and Taylor Swift, they are the stars of the new movie The Lorax, will be celebrating NEA's Read Across America Day to honor Dr. Seuss's birthday. According to the U.S. Department of Education, children who have not developed some basic literacy skills by the time that they enter school are 3 to 4 times more likely to drop out in later years. Friday is a day to celebrate reading, so as I read to my little one at home, I'm asking everyone in this room to read to a small person that day and help their education in the future. Plus, it's kind of a fun day to take a kid to a movie. The Lorax opens on Friday, and some of the teasers have my interest hurt. So, cartoons. How I like. This is a quote that's kind of been sitting in my pile of things that I like when I need some inspiration. In the 1960s, John F. Kennedy said, "Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. The human mind is our fundamental resource." Nathanson mentioned that state budget hearings are about to begin, and not only in Pennsylvania, but across the nation, public education is under attack. 50 years after that quote, we are not continuing to make progress, and our most fundamental resource is being compromised
in a political war by people who have millions and millions of dollars and politicians who are willing to do whatever they can for the almighty dollar. These kids that sit in this room are the ones who suffer because of it. Governor Corbett's proposed budget is complicated, and basically it's a shell game. I sat in this very building and listened to Governor Corbett stand on a stage and put on a nice routine that he was not making any cuts to public education. Later we learned a lot differently. His budget cuts will continue to cause chaos in the public schools and eliminate research-based classroom-proven programs that educators say are important to students in order for them to make progress. The truth is, if Governor Corbett's budget were to pass as presented, school districts would face an additional $1 million cut in state funding. This on top of the $860 million that were cut last year. I don't know that we can afford to lose much more. This is how it will impact us in Easton. It shows over the last few years how much we have been allocated each year in basic state education funding. Over the last 2 years, we will have taken a $3.7 million hit, all because of what's going on in our state. In his testimony before the State Appropriations Committee on February 27th, Pennsylvania Education Secretary Ron Tumalis offered no real plan to help support school districts that are spiraling into financial distress. One can't turn a blind eye. We have school districts that are closing their doors that can no longer afford to keep their doors open to educate students. To me, that's not a solution. Program cuts mean larger class sizes, less individual attention, and fewer opportunities for our students. Right now at the high school, there are 200 plus students in study halls. They are a direct result of staffing cuts implemented during the 10-11 school year. These study halls are the kind of things that we are looking to eliminate and make transitions in through the implementation of a flexible schedule, and this can't be done with less for our students and less staff. Teachers at the elementary school are doing all that they can to ensure students receive interventions to keep them learning at a rate where they need to be learning. I see these things every single day. I see the creative things that are happening in our schools, and it's pretty amazing that each and every day our students receive a fair and appropriate public education as stipulated by federal law. We need to make sure that our kids get what they need, and by doing it with less is not a solution. The reality that the governor's cuts did not have to happen last year is very real. They certainly don't have to happen this year. The General Assembly has the opportunity to reverse the governor's bad funding decisions. So I'm asking everyone to employ their state senators and legislators to reject the governor's proposal and return a sound funding formula so we are not sitting in a position where we have to make drastic decisions for our students' future. I'll put a plug in for our Partners for Public Education for $1. Anyone can join for a 5-year membership, and it will give you all sorts of regular updates on what's going on in Harrisburg with the governor's cuts and ways people can do something to make a difference. It's when we sit and watch things on TV and don't do anything about it, we're just as guilty. So, I got to go to Boston this month to the National Education Association Women's Leadership Conference. It was mind-blowing. I met a lot of great people from Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and they inspired me, believe it or not, to do more and to be more than I ever imagined I could be. The topic of teaching came up a lot. Put a lot of educators together. One of the things we're going to talk about is teaching. And how we can make things better collectively was a really prevailing theme. As a graduate student, I did my thesis on why people choose to teach. So it's pretty weird when you cite your own research. People choose to become teachers because of former influence of a former teacher, whether it was positive or negative. I decided to become a teacher because I hated my first grade teacher. We wanted to play an important role in society. Most people have parents who were educators themselves. Some people believe it was a natural choice, and some people felt that it was just something that would fulfill them to be an educator to work with students. I had the opportunity at my conference to meet an author. Her name is Katie Farber, and she wrote a book titled Why Great Teachers Leave and How We Stop the Exodus. She's a crunchy mama, she calls herself. She's a granola-eating, barefoot kind of gal. She's pretty amazing. And we talked a lot about why teachers leave. And it's stuff that's, a lot of it is out of our control. Standardized testing. We are given no choice whether to take the PSSAs or not. working conditions, unrealistic expectations. No Child Left Behind is a great example of that. We're being asked that all students in a few years meet proficiency. Bureaucracy and culture of disrespect. So I kind of want to see those things meld together and, as a whole, make teaching a more desirable and honorable profession. So now I get to do the part that we all look forward to. Our January Teacher of the Month. This teacher is someone who always asks questions. She's a positive role model within the classroom, and she serves as her school's after-school director. She works well with her colleagues, and many people go to her for some advice. Her name is J. Stacy Ely, and she is a third grade teacher at March Elementary School. She is not here tonight, I don't believe. But we can give her a nice little round of applause. And our partners in education, I believe many of them are here tonight, were presented last month. This is the Easton Rover Ambassadors. These students are the students who went to the elementary schools with Troy Hind and presented Jay a play. They also wrote their own children's stories, and I see many of them that were former students. So our Easton Rover Ambassadors. They have all received an individual certificate. There's a great picture of them. Let's see if I can get that. An individual certificate from me, but there are many of them here tonight. So if you are a Rover Ambassador, I would appreciate if you kind of stood up and took your glory. Yeah, he's taller than me. I kind of listen to what he tells me to do. So the next couple months will be interesting. I'll have lots of information on the budget. If anyone really needs to fall asleep one night, I can share it with you. But hopefully we can make an impact and get Harrisburg to see that we can't continue on this path. I'm sure Mr. Seminoda would appreciate a few extra dollars in there. So, thank you.
Thanks. Moving on, listed in the minutes here are the executive session reports. And if I can have a motion for... Okay, going under new business, I'm going to ask for a motion for the calendars and take number 7 separate because they were breaking up. So number 7. And we have a motion. Get a second. Second. I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the calendars? The noted changes are the differences in the locations. Bill?
No, go ahead. Your scheduled meetings, I'm okay.
Great. So, well, it's both of them. It's the school calendar and the scheduled meetings.
Okay. School calendar for 12/13. I have a couple concerns. The November 6th is a Tuesday, and the May 14th is a Tuesday. We have Monday, we bring kids in. Tuesday, we have an in-service, so kids are off. And Wednesday, we bring kids back. We do that twice in the year. I don't think that's very educational consistent, and I would like to see if that's possible to have a 4-day week instead of a 1 day off and then come back 3. I think we need some continuity in the educational system, and I don't think the 6th and the 14th provide that for us.
Any other comments?
Any reason why they were scheduled at that time? And they've been scheduled that time this year and probably previous years.
Yeah,
To me, it makes no sense.
Well, the November 6th is the presidential election, and as you know, 3 of our schools are required to stay open and host the elections. When the principals met, that was discussed, and they felt that that would be something that would be to the benefit of all of our students to be off that day, because that is a very, very well attended, normally general election.
May 14th, we also discussed that. In fact, we met for an hour and a half with our building principals on this issue. While that is not as well attended, they felt that that too would be, even though it's only three buildings, they felt that it was in our best interest to remain closed. So those are the only reasons, Mr. Ryan.
Okay, and we don't have security people in those buildings to help
Yeah.
us and support our kids in those days?
It's just that parking during the general election is going to be very, very hazardous because of all the people that attend the general. Yeah, sure, we can change it.
Yeah, question. Did you have the right date? What date did you say? You said December?
November 6th.
November 6th. Okay, and it makes, okay. No, I would agree that that day is, once every 4 years, some people come out and vote, and they stay on the rolls now as long as they vote once every 4 years. And so when the presidential elections are up, you do have people running in and out, but that's a big thing.
It's a great teaching moment for kids.
Right, it is.
We're passing that up. A great teaching moment for kids.
Kids
Aren't we
see.
in this for kids?
Yes.
And we educate kids to be in that environment on election day, I think would be appropriate. And let people park and we have security and we can use local police and we can keep some degree of consistency in the education process.
Right, and the political signs that are up by polling places and stuff, they could see all that, and that's the time to see it. You get loads of signs.
Other comments?
Mr. President, in the past, I've objected to starting school before Labor Day. I make the same objection again. 2 half days and then 2 full days followed by a 4-day vacation at the very beginning. Doesn't seem very effective to me. And I'll be voting no on item B. Or 8.
Other comments?
President, I have a question. I'm not sure who to address it to. Perhaps Mr. First. I seem to recall a few years ago there was some ruling or something that came to the attention of the schools that it may have been through the PTAs. I don't know if anybody else remembers this, that they did not want the schools open that day. Is that what was that?
No,
Okay,
I can tell
the
you.
board president had a meeting with community members who were concerned about having meetings or having elections during the school day and having the kids meet in the building at the same time that election was going on with people coming in at all times of the day. So they had a meeting and there was a compromise that was met that we would have teacher food service days and the students would be out of the school on those election days. And that's how we went forward at that point.
But it's not, it wasn't a policy that was passed.
I don't remember a policy being passed by the board.
Well, in general consensus.
There was a,
Right.
they didn't want outsiders in the building. And in some cases, I'll be very honest with you, it is hard to get an election place unless you use a school.
Mr. President, one comment that Mr. Ryder mentioned was having school district security at the polling places. I know municipal police are barred from polling places. It's against election law to have them there. I imagine since the school district is a political subdivision, it may be also illegal to have school police there. The only law enforcement allowable is the constable of the district or precinct.
I think one other note that is important, we begin school and we do coordinate our efforts with CIT. And CIT also begins school before Labor Day. So in order for our students to attend, they would miss out if we didn't. So I think that just needs to be noted.
Other comments? I think hearing that, even though there was a motion for both of them, I want to take it separately. So I'm going to keep the motion that was made with the second for the purpose of our public meetings and that advertisement. So all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that will take the vote on the school calendar, and I'll ask for a second motion on that one. I have a motion for the school calendar for further discussion. Motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Are there any further comments from what we've heard? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Joan, let's...
Mr. Arndt?
Aye.
Mrs. Ellison? Yes. Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Dr. Moscatus?
Yes.
Mr. Penfield?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Nay.
Mr. Ryder?
No.
Dr. Volcano?
No.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes. The ayes have it, this calendar is staying. Okay, moving on under new business. As I promised, I was going to separate this. And I'm going to take my separation first, and that is the administrative election appointments. And if I can have a motion for the administrative election, please. The administrative, should I clear that up? Administrative election is Michelle Rinaldi and Dawn Shoemaker.
Mr. President, I move that we go forward with the elections.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Was it Bob or Frank? Okay. We didn't know. So we have a motion and a second. Personnel, any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Now I'll go back and take all other approvals for personnel, and I have a motion.
Motion.
I have a second.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We had made changes, so I'm going to ask if it's okay to take 8B, which is approval requirements. I'm actually going to do that one separate. So if I can have that, and a motion for regret.
I'll move that.
Thank you. And do we get a second?
Second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. We talked about 8C, 8D. 9, we talked, there was nothing about academics, so we seem to be good there. If somebody has a problem. And we can then probably take up through number 10, which are the policies. Number 11 is the new business on athletics. And number 12 was buildings and grounds. And last but not least were the financial matters and the auditor report. Is everybody fine with that? So I'm going to ask for a motion.
Mr. President,
Yes.
can you clarify what you're asking for? You want
It's
to
a
cover that
motion
entire?
from 8C all the way through 13E. If we have issues, I need to know. I think I heard you.
That includes the bus scheduling?
Yes, it does. Pull that one.
Right.
We'll go back. Let's do 8C, 8D, and 9E and 9B, 9C, 9D. I'm going to pull out the flex scheduling. Everything down to 9 through 9E. So 8C through 9E. And we have the flex scheduling separate. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Question on the motion?
Yes.
Just a point of clarification, 8C's for,
The expulsion? Or, I'm sorry, the grievance?
that's to deny, correct?
That's to deny.
Understood.
Any other comments or questions? Not? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, we'll have 9F, the flex scheduling. Can we have a motion?
Motion.
Have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Questions?
I have a comment. I just want to bring people's attention to the fact that there were stated concerns in the committee meeting, and I continue to have concerns regarding the timeline of implementation of the flex scheduling for the school year 2012-13. And I will base my concerns on the fact that if you look at the timeline that was presented to us last year in December, they would have, a year ago this December, they would have begun in December and then through to April and May. They would have been looking at pacing guides and curriculum in particular, and we are at that point this year where they're looking at the pacing guides. And I have concerns that we're a year beyond where their timeline was. And again, this is reiterating the concern I had before, that we're in March and we're just now working on pacing guides. This is a significant change in scheduling at high school. It's a significant change in general at the high school for the academics. And if we're just now working on the pacing guides, we haven't developed our intervention plan for the intervention period the way it should be well developed. We can see how it was going to play out, see the goals, see how the measurements were going to be put into place. I have deep concerns about the readiness, and this is nothing against the administration. I'm just talking about the timeline and how it's taken longer to get to certain points. I have great concerns at implementation start date for the academic year of 2012-13. And I just would hate to see us doing something where we're shortchanging the administration, the students, and the faculty, and moving people along a little bit beyond the ready point.
I'm going to look right now to Janet and Bill. You talked about this. Anything to share and comment on? Any response?
Yes, this is Allison, and I have spoken about this previously, and I'm of the opinion that Dr. Redding has come and spoken with the faculty at the high school, and that there is a definite plan in place for all the professional development that is needed for the teachers. He's coming back again, is it April 10th? To talk with another group of teachers and other departments. I believe that Mr. Cuck and Ms. Cassis and Dr. Roberts and others have spent great amounts of time researching this option for our students at the high school. They have run schedules for all different kinds of contingencies. They have planning in place, professional development for teachers to understand, yes, it will be different teaching in an 80-minute block of time. But I really believe that it can be done, and we need to move forward now with this. And I'm excited about it. It's something new for our students that the science teachers must be over the moon, having more time in their classes, and I really don't have any reason to not want to move forward with this at this time.
I've looked at it from a perspective of it's not a 4x4 block. It is a flexible schedule, meaning that I can have a course semester based. I can have an AP course that goes the entire year. There's been some modifications made in AP as far as the science is concerned. And I think with the committee and the board, everything we've asked Mike and Jeanette to do, they have brought to us schedules, interventions, And I think obviously that has to be worked upon. That's not going to be an overnighter, because you have 2,800 kids that you want to get some kind of support, but it eliminates movement, the movements that we have now. It eliminates study halls, which when we had an individual say, well, we have 200 kids in a study hall, we just plop them in there because there's no other place to go. So I think there's a lot of positive things about this, because again, there's not just a 4x4 block where I'm just locked in. I support it. I just appreciate the efforts. I appreciate the training. I got a chance to sit in on the training. I like what I saw. Do they need more? Yes. Will they get more? Yes. Is it an ongoing learning thing for teachers? Yes. But I also think teachers teach. When they get in the classroom and close the door, most of them, the vast majority of teachers, do an awfully good job. I can't wait to see it in action. As a former educator, principal, guidance counselor, you name it, I can't wait to see it in action. Thank you.
I'll ask further comment.
Yes, I have. When I was at Northampton, I was on the study team for this, and every other Thursday I was pulled out of class and we studied block schedules. And we visited 8 schools, and of the 8 schools we visited, the only one that this really worked at was Hatboro Horsham. They built the school almost with block scheduling in mind. This could be detrimental to the slower kids that can't catch on. It depends on the subject. If the teacher understands that they just can't lecture or put math, cover all their boards with math in one period and expect the kids to get it. So there's a lot of faults. There also is the fault that you have students that graduating from high school that are taking, say, 3 courses in high school, and the method we were studying was 3 courses and then a course. The last course of the day is they would go to other teachers to seek help. So all the teachers would be in their rooms helping students that needed help in that given subject. Okay, so it worked out. We seemed like we had all the problems, and when we did the math scheduling, we still had a student taking algebra in 10th grade in the first semester and taking algebra 2 in the second semester of his 11th grade year, because they couldn't match them up back to back. And so the student lost all that they learned in a year, and they went in back to it almost with 0 knowledge. So, I mean, that has to be addressed. Yes, there are many, there are pluses to it, but one of the things that we did after that period is we let the teachers vote on it. After we presented everything we had, all the pluses and all the minuses, this was a teacher committee with 3 administrators and 5 teachers on it that made this report. And we had the overwhelming number of teachers vote no.
Dr. Volcano, may I just interject something? What you're saying about a block schedule, what we're discussing is a flexible schedule. It's totally different than a true block schedule. And when you think about students that need different challenges throughout their career, or they need enrichment, there are interventions that are built into this flex schedule to assist students that need extra in both areas, both in areas that they might be challenged and both that they need to be excelled. So it is totally different than a true block. So it's important that you understand that.
Yeah, but if you're going to, and if you do this every other day, okay, block scheduling, which you might be alluding to, what happens is if the student hits a Monday and then goes to a Wednesday and then a Friday, and they happen to be out with the flu all week, they're missing actually 6 periods instead of, X number. So they're and actually probably closer to 7 or 8 periods that they're missing, and they're really far behind. That means the teacher really has to put a lot in that student to get that student back up to par. And it might be a very good student, but it's a student that got a bad case of the flu, and there was nothing they could do. So I just have my doubts that the poorer students will do well in block scheduling.
Dr. Volcano, I would just like to let you know, in case you weren't aware, that many of these discussions were held at the academics committee meetings, and many of these issues were brought up and discussed. And Mr. Cook has talked with me on several occasions about scheduling all kinds of things. If a student wants, band, orchestra, I'm just, thinking out loud here. Another class that might be difficult to get. He's already run a lot of those schedules, and they're able to be met. And the intervention is going to be built in the day. Now, we can't really make our decisions based on one student who might have the flu for a week. There will be other situations where students will be out of school, of course. But, it's up to the student and the teacher to make those arrangements for that student to get caught up. And really, that would be a good place for an intervention, for the student to go there and not catch up on what he or she has missed when they are out.
But I, besides what I said, I think a lot of what Mrs. Ellison said, I agree with. And this could be, if we're going to try this for 1 year, and then vote on it a year from now, if we're going to keep it, and if it's going to work, I agree with her. Saying in March, which I guess tomorrow is March, I think, or the next Thursday is March. I'm a day off, it's leap year. Okay. We got an extra day anyway. But we have to be very cautious because we took those 3 years to acclimate the teachers and everything, and we still had a rough time getting it through. And the math teacher who fills up the board, and that you're right, the science teacher loves it, the English teacher, has is like this because he or she's not sure of doing the right thing, and so forth. So there's some classes you could really act out and do a lot with those extra minutes, and there are some classes that you're not. But I want to know just exactly when you say modified block, does that mean they'll be in block one day, the next day they'll be in regular classes?
No, there was actually a great presentation that we spent about 2 hours, or no, an hour at the last committee meeting.
Okay.
They really laid it out, and I think I'd suggest that you get Mr. Coughlin.
Okay, I will meet Mr. Coughlin.
That would be important, because
Yes.
there are consistencies. I think that you're thinking there's a lack of consistencies.
Right.
There are consistencies with the flex schedule.
One other thing I would say, though, and to keep in mind, and I know the board is going to probably vote yes on this, is that it's in the mid-90s, block scheduling, everybody was jumping into it. A lot of those schools that jumped into it jumped out. You don't hear right now of any new schools accepting block scheduling. I'm being honest with you. And the other thing is, like I said, in college, when they go from 3 classes and then they go to college and they get 5, there's some writings on it that the kids can't handle it because they were used to handling 3 courses and getting help if they missed, because of illness and so forth. And you said one student, but and if the flu is really potent, it's going to be a lot more than one student. So, you know, in college you can't get that help like you really could in high school. So that's going to, I had students to come back to me and say, you know, from other schools that knew me well, saying that they were having a rough time because they went to this school and it was you know, block scheduling, maybe straight block scheduling. And we're not talking about that. And now that then they went, and now they got 5 subjects a semester, and they can't keep up. So we have to keep that in mind.
Dr. Moskaitis?
Yes, Mr. Fatal, thank you. I have been exposed to this topic since I think last September. I'm sure some of you, like Mrs. Ellison and Mr. Riley, have been exposed to it for a lot longer. I'm impressed with how the team has been working on this for a long time. I had many questions in September. And I'm happy to say with the last academic committee meeting, all those questions have been satisfactorily answered, especially on the mathematics, which was a special concern to me. However, my comments would be along the lines that I don't believe that anyone should expect that there's any magic to flex scheduling. The magic is not in the scheduling, it's in what happens in the classroom. And I'm going to support this because it's a sign of faith that the people who worked on this, and the administration and supposedly the teachers, are behind this and will work very hard to make this happen in a way that we'll all be proud of. My only caveat would be that with that support, I do not want to hear in a year or 2 years how student achievement has slipped because we're transitioning to the new flex scheduling. I think that would be unacceptable. So with that in mind, I think the team has done a great job, and I'm certainly ready to vote on it.
Any other questions, final questions?
I just have a couple more comments, because I continue to have concerns. With this flex scheduling that we're going to move into, if we do move into it, there is a significant depletion in content in any subject matter. As many studies I have read over and over again, so many different studies on the internet and educational journals across the board, that's one of the major concerns, is that there is a decrease in content when you take a course that's supposed to be taught for an entire year and you shorten it into a half year, regardless of the fact that you are having the same amount of hours. The students don't have an attention span to sit for 90, 80 minutes and absorb multiple concepts in one sitting. It's much more difficult, and retention, studies also show that retention is significantly less when you do it in that approach versus multiples every day, seeing the concepts for shorter periods of time. You retain the information much better over a year. And that's one of my concerns. So if we're going to move to block scheduling or flex scheduling, and your courses are now going to be a half year, we still have our pacing guides, and I'm telling you right now that I'm concerned the pacing guides have not been completed. That's clear. The instructors, all of the teachers, the faculty members will be going through their curriculums and identifying what can be moved out, what is maybe not as important, not as significant, or how can we, water this down a little bit. And that's crucial to being successful with the same course taught in a condensed framework. And it's not done yet. In fact, and as I brought attention to, I pulled this out from last year's presentation. They were going to be working on the guides, the pacing guides, last year at this time. March, April, May. And we are now at this year, a year later, and we're just starting to work on that now, on top of the fact that I'm still concerned. I give everybody a lot of credit. I just think the timeline, we're crunching it, and we're doing it to the detriment of the administrators, the faculty, and the students. If we're going to do this, let's do it so that it will be successful, not hope that it's going to get, and we just need to make a decision and do it now so that we can move on. Let's do it right. Let's get the teachers professionally developed in their training. Let's give them adequate time, not Dr. Reddick once and he's going to come 2 more times before the end of the year, and then next year we'll reflect scheduling. It hasn't been complete. I sense there's a rush into this, and I also sense on the board's level, we've been contemplating this for so long, let's just move on. But let's look at where they are in the process. And again, I would ask people to please reflect on research that's been done. There's been very limited quantitative research that's been done. But what's been done over the last 10 years is significant. And I think if we're going to do this, we want to do it the right way and be very, very thoughtful and well planned out. And I've identified 3 areas that I'm concerned about.
Taking the comments, there's currently the motion and second on the floor to approve. Motion of yes means it's approved, and we go into flex scheduling. A no means that it's put aside and goes back to committee. At this point, I will ask for the vote. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I'm going to ask, I think I only heard 2. Caleb? So it's 7-2.
But, Mr. President,
Yes.
it seems to me like the doctor over here was stating, if we see it slipping behind a year from now, we can't wait 2 years and have it slip more.
I don't think anybody's going to let that happen.
Okay.
But keep in mind that you will have affected a year's worth of academics
Right, yes.
and year's worth of students with them still trying to clean in
Oh, yeah.
as they go.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, moving ahead, under policies. We have final policy adoptions of policies that are listed there. We have tentative policy adoption. I'm going to break one out because it's mentioned. I'm going to break out 903 and do that one separately. But we'll take 806, the child and student abuse one. So 903 will come back to not the first time. That will be the second motion. So all the policies except 903, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. Second policy is 903. Public participation. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Have one recorded. Okay, under athletics, now I'm going to look down through here. I think I have them all. Under 11, we have athletics. Under 12, we have buildings and grounds. Under 13, we have the financial and student account. And insurance, scholarship. I'd like to take all of those, if we may, 11 through 13. And we have a motion.
I so move.
We have a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. At this point, we're opening the floor up to any items that were non-agenda items that you would like to address the board on. So if you'd like to address the board, please come forward to the microphone and state your name and address, and obviously the subject.
Hi, Corinne Pizzuto, 19th 7th Street, West Ward resident. A lot of new faces. I haven't been here in a while, but hi, everybody. I had an interesting experience the end of last year where I went to Mercantile, which is one of our best downtown businesses. there's a national photographer there who was doing a book signing. And I caught the end of the presentation where the photographer himself was asking anybody in the community to pick up his book, which is called Gay in America, and it features photographs of inspirational homosexual couples and then short stories about them. And featured in that book is a local Easton couple. And he said, wouldn't it be a great idea to pick it up and donate it to the high school? And I thought, well, I go to the school board meetings, so I guess I could be the one to do that. In realizing later after saying publicly that I'd volunteered to donate that book to the high school and have it autographed for the students, which I did, I realized that my bank book didn't quite cover the cost, and of course the photography book's pretty expensive. And then my next thought was, gee, I don't want to donate the book and never know if it was treated properly. And then it raised all these questions, like I wonder if it would ever be defaced. I wonder if anybody would write any nasty language on it or like draw on it or in some kind of foul way. And I thought, well, that raises some questions that hopefully board members have thought of in the past about the respect and what goes on in the schools relating to this subject matter. So I still have the book, and I still am planning on donating it, and I have reached out to the teachers that are involved with the Gay Straight Alliance, Student Alliance, which is a newer group, it's my understanding, and there wasn't one before, so that's a good thing. And I'd like to kind of learn more about this, but I also ask that the board learns more about this as well. Some questions I didn't have the answers to that I wrote to the teachers about that I'd like to bring up publicly is I was wondering if there's any documented issues relating to gay student bullying, and if so, how many? I was wondering if in any grade, is there any same-sex materials discussed, including sexual education, history, politics, or literature, and if so, what grades is that discussed? And then how bad do you feel as an administration, as the board, and as teachers, as students, how bad do you feel the problem relating to gay bullying is, and how bad is the disrespect of homophobia at the school? At first I was going to word that is there a problem, but I've already learned in some of the responses that there absolutely is. I learned from venturing out in the community and seeing students that attend public school systems that there absolutely is, just in the nature of referring to this subject matter in a negative way, turning just like modern day terminology into like a negative rather than a statement of positive. So again, I just appreciate you looking into this. I appreciate learning more. I think the public deserves to either applaud the administration or help solve the problem if there is one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Noel Jones, 800 Ferry Street. It's nice to be here and see all the new faces on the board. I host the Neighbors of Easton blog, and there's a lot of discussion on the blog around various lawsuits that have been facing the district. And I just wanted to come and appeal to the board for help in investigating these matters and getting to the bottom of them so that we can stop wasting money, taxpayer money. One of those suits is the lawsuit by Michelle Volcano Hall. And I just learned from actually a commenter on the blog yesterday that that lawsuit is actually tied in with the LaToya Monroe discrimination suit. This is not something I realized before. Both of these cases have been in the news for a very long time, and it was mentioned in a Morning Call article last year, and I missed it. It was a passing statement in a longer article, and I missed it. But one of my readers posted it, and apparently, according to Ms. Monroe, the emergency certificate for Michelle Volcano was pulled so that she could have the job over qualified minority candidates, and this was part of LaToya Monroe's racial discrimination suit. Having said that, I would hope that the board would look into that and find out who signed off on pulling an emergency certificate for someone when there were other qualified candidates. And also, who approved a 3-year contract for an emergency certificate as opposed to the normal 1-year contract? And then, once we know that, I'd like to know, and other readers have mentioned, why can't those people be brought up on a civil suit and have their pensions stripped? Because we're in the middle of a budget crisis. These lawsuits are costing taxpayers thousands of dollars, many, many thousands of dollars. And some of these people are going to live comfortably for the rest of their lives on pensions that we're paying while we continue to pay off the legal bills caused by their illegal behavior. So I ask for your help on that. I also ask for your help on the Express Times and Morning Call appeals to protest their request for legal right to know request for emails from last year. This is the second time that the state court has delivered a decision saying that it's a perfectly legal request and it needs to be fulfilled, and yet for some reason the district continues to waste taxpayer money fighting it rather than turning over the emails. And the excuses that are given for fighting it make no sense. The first thing that we heard was that it would be 3,500 emails and that it would take too many man-hours to pull them all out and that it would cost us too much money. Now the number has been upped past 4,000. According to the article in the Express Times, the emails have already been redacted, and the complaint now is that it would cost $2,100 to print them. If they've already been redacted, it sounds like the work has already been done, so the additional complaint that it would cost additional man-hours doesn't make any sense. And why can't it be delivered electronically? Has anyone investigated whether or not they can just hit send as opposed to printing them off? And lastly, I just found out that the Express Times reimburses printing costs in a matter like this. So the printing costs aren't even an issue, and I would ask for the board's help in putting an end to this spending. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
Let me to address this, Mr. President. I think that there are a number of misconceptions and misunderstood facts. First of all, there is no connection between the LaToya Montrose case and the volcano case. I personally handled both of them, and there is no meaningful connection whatsoever. The second thing is most of the lawsuits you mentioned are covered by insurance, and although there is a deductible on some of them, the statement that the defense of these cases is all out of taxpayers' dollars is not entirely accurate. Plus, the demands in these cases far exceed the amount of defense. Otherwise, they wouldn't be defended. With regard to the email, I want to make it very clear that the only reason why these cases are being pursued is because, in fact, there has been a determination made after meetings with the IT staff, after meetings with HR, administration, and in fact, looking at how documents can be efficiently produced when they are requested based on time parameters. That's the issue in these cases, is that the request for the emails is not based on their subject matter, but on time periods. The law does not provide for reimbursement for administrative time that is spent in the collation and redaction of these documents. It is completely untrue that they have already been redacted. That is not true. We have estimated that just printing out the documents for examination so they can be redacted, and again, redaction protects legal interests that the school district is required to protect, student interests, special education interests, personnel interests. But just to print the paper so that redactions can be made would cost about $2,100. Moreover, the administration and the school district are legitimately concerned that because of the formula that is being, at this point, permitted to at least some degree by the court, although the last Commonwealth Court decision did give some clarification and benefit. The formula that allows requests to be made solely on the period of time leaves this district subject to abusive requests, so that if a month period of all the documents that are producible is permissible, then that request can be repeated month after month after month after month. And it is not as easy as just pressing a button. The proper review and production of these documents requires substantial administrative time and expense. So the bottom line is that the only real reason why these matters are being pursued is to ultimately save the taxpayer money, not to spend the taxpayer's money.
Thank you.
Far be it for me to praise the district. I think I'm obligated to try. Many of you recall some years ago I was a vocal critic of getting emergency certificates and other people hired without benefit of proper paperwork. And let's be clear, some things weren't done quite right. However, of late, I think the district has done some amazing steps to correct itself and improve those operations and to tighten it up. And I, for one, think that not one single penny, not one red cent, should be awarded to anyone who is continuing some action which was ill-conceived in the beginning and frivolous, to a district that has now cleaned up its act very substantially. And that a person holding an emergency certificate is just that. They're a temporary. They don't even hold a 1-year anything. They're obligated to stand aside as soon as a real teacher is found. Now, maybe we didn't work too hard, but there's no obligation to maintain that. There's an obligation to stand aside. Now, I sat in the HR seat for a number of years. But when I got a request to interview the chairman of the board golfing buddy, I knew what I had to do, and I didn't, shirk from the obligation. And I can understand why people did what was required of them at the time. But you know what? The golfing buddy isn't on the payroll any longer. And I think the district is to be commended for improving its actions, and I'm just echoing some voices, not to give out any benefit whatsoever to anybody for continuing a frivolous action. And I would say spend money so that they don't go away with a smile. And I'm well aware of some of the attorney recovery fees where it pays to begin a frivolous action because your attorney gets paid off. And if you can hook a little tiny thing, you can say, well, pay me to go well. Seriously, you have made some improvements. Hold your line. You've got a solicitor. And I would disagree. Beat them into the ground, trample all over them. Do not spend one single penny, because otherwise you encourage other people. Now, I understand if you've been stomped on by the big guy, you want to fight back, and the law is there to provide some protection for you. But sometimes people just assume that the world owes them a living, and that's not true. You guys have done an amazing job to dress it up, and I hope you're doing an even better job to dress it up.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. I didn't come to TV to really say anything. I really came with my wife and my kids, as they are required by their students, by the teachers, to attend these meetings. But I have to say, as I was sitting back there and listening to the board go through his agenda, I was quite impressed. One, I was impressed with the student and how articulate they spoke. That's a tribute to the teachers that work with them on a daily basis, and that's a hands-on approach where you take a student that had inward confidence and outward expression at the end. That's goal setting. So you are to be commended on that as a board as a whole. When I look back and I see myself sitting in that chair, I'm proud to say I did sit in that chair. But more so, I was a little skeptical when it came down to block scheduling. Had the opportunity to see my nieces and the southern states go through this and then rebuttal back out of it. But one of the things that I walk away tonight with is that this school board looked out of the block and made it flexible for everyone. I like that idea. The reason why I believe that it failed so many places in our country is because it was blocked. There was no movement there. It wasn't a challenge for the teacher to be able to move the student around or put a student here, where in this way you at least have some flexibility. I commend you on that, and I look forward to seeing what's happening. Although my children are now moving on, they're all 4 through the district, and they're all moving to college. I think I can rest, but I'm not sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, can you do what everybody else did and state your name, or do you assume everybody knows?
Mr. Fenable, my name is Ken Brown. I'm your neighbor.
And is there anyone else this evening that would like to address them? Hey, I'm seeing no other hands. We'll move on then with, was there any correspondence that was being acknowledged? Okay. IU board report, Dr. Stites.
Yes, it was an unusual month in that our IU board meeting was held before our own board meeting. In your packet this week, you will find 2 things. One will be the normal monthly newsletter that I'm sure you all read. And the second thing requires a bit of attention, and that is the IU has invited all the school board members to attend the 12th Annual Merit Scholar Recognition Ceremony. The information will be indicated. It's on Tuesday, May 1. And they're asking for an RSVP from each of you by April 13th, and I promised already that you would do that. So please try to help not make me alarmed.
We will, sir.
The last item is one of interest in that the IU meeting is interesting in that you have a representative from every school district in the IU. So it's an opportunity for me to turn to the person next to me and ask them about a special topic. Well, I happen to have both the Pleasant Valley and Bethlehem representatives sitting near me. And the topic I asked them was one that I'd raised in our finance committee. And that was, do they have a line item budget that is presented to them as a board on a monthly basis? And guess what they told me? Yes, they do. So if Mr. Simonetti, you need any assistance in helping devise such a system which is necessary for good governance, I can give you the names of the Pleasant Valley and the Bethlehem contact, and I think they would be more than willing to help. Pleasant Valley in particular took out his iPad and brought it up for me, and it was, in fact, a year-to-date budget compilation, which I think we sorely need to be able to make good decisions for this community. Thank you, Mr. Van.
Thank you. Moving on, Mr. Riley.
Mr. President, the Easton Public Library Board met on February 14th. There's nothing of any significance for this board that happened at the meeting, just normal business. Next meeting is March 13th at 3 p.m.
Penabone, CIT.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Ryder. I don't myself don't have anything to present.
The major part of the meeting was based on the housing, buying land so those students can continue to build houses, incorporate their skills, and that's where we're kind of at this point in time.
And we had one more thing to add is that we are progressing with our solar energy project. We were paying 9 cents, I think, an hour, which is relatively cheap, and it's paying between 20 and 25% of the electric at CIT, which is a big bulk of it. And because of that, they probably will come in with a zero, well, I think we did approve it at a zero budget increase because of the solar power that we're using. And outside of that, everything seems to be running well in the school. Our solicitor is at the school is Mr. Troy, and he does a great job for us. And everything is going smooth. And Mr. Roth, I think, is continuing. Dr. Roth now is continuing to do a good job to keep us up to date.
Continuing on the NCC board.
Yeah. I just want to note that they had, you too, we share that, but that they had a this is the second year, I think they had a midterm graduation, second or third, and it has really helped as far as the summer graduation, because the summer is geared to 1,000 graduates. This goes about 500 or 600, and it really, I don't know what they would do now. And they're hitting 10,000 full-time students. They're right around that number. It depends on what day or so forth. They are really and recognized by numerous colleges across the country. And I would say that the other school that was a challenge to us was HAC, which is the abbreviation for Harrisburg. But I think personally, and I think Bob would agree with me, I think we surpassed them in academics, and that we're probably the #1 academic community college in the state. And we could say that anyway, because nobody will challenge us on that. Right? And Bob's an officer, and he's referring to me, and I'm just proud to be part of that. And we have a meeting this Thursday night.
Next week.
Oh, next week, that's right. They moved it. I'm sorry. I called in and said I'm coming to your meeting next week. You're right.
Okay, moving on. Mrs.
There's nothing really special about PSBA this month. I know upcoming they will be looking for legislative platform items. And so if anyone has any thoughts about things that they would like to add to the platform of PSBA, you start formulating your thoughts and putting things together, because there will be a timeline when they need to be delivered to PSBA.
Thank you. At this point, is there anything by any other board members?
Can I sing the praises of Easton Area School District in 3 minutes? District Wrestling, 2 champs, 65 straight years with at least 1 champ. Of the 14 kids that started out at various weight classes, 8 are going to regionals. 8 are going to regionals. Amazingly, 4 of them were on the JV team this year. They didn't wrestle varsity until the very end, when we had some discipline problems, etc. Our basketball team is playing in the district semifinals tomorrow at Stroudsburg High School. I think game time is 7 o'clock, but I'll be there at 6, so I won't miss it. If you have an opportunity to go to the senior play, I don't know if they call it the senior play anymore. It's such a big production anymore with the awards at the State Theater. But if you have an opportunity to go, I've been going forever. And right after the senior play on Sunday, I have to leave. I might even have to leave the play early, because I have to get to the Scholar Athlete dinner in Northampton that I've been to every year since 1961, the first year of it. I can tell you who won, Eric Marsh from Nazareth. But I've been there every year since 1961, not only because Easton's always represented, as every school in Northampton County is, but because it's almost as amazing to me as when I go to West Point. I mean, that's the decorum of the young men who are selected to represent their school scholastically and athletically. In this case, it's football. And our representative, Zian Hayden, who was our quarterback this year, who did an absolutely amazing job to take a young team to a 13-3 record and participate in the district finals against Nazareth. Well, I'm not all about sports, but I know what else I want to tell you. The other night we hosted a district doubleheader. Our school district was asked to host the semifinal doubleheader. Freedom, Parkland, Allen, and Emmaus. The gym was absolutely packed for the first game. I don't know that I've been in our middle school gym when it was like that, and it was just amazing to see them packed right up to the roof. I mean, literally to the roof. We had the stands down at the top that we don't usually have to put down. The comments from people who came in from 4 other school districts, and there were people there from Wilson High School and schools that aren't playing anymore, but they come to watch the game, are just, I mean, they just do so much for me, because I know when that gym was built, there was a lot of criticism about how much money was spent on building this facility. But the people who come there can't say enough about how much we must care about our kids to put up this building. And they come in and see this. They can't believe, because there is none other in the Lehigh Valley. I mean, they are big gyms in the Lehigh Valley, but there is none that is like ours. I mean, it is just, if you saw it on television, it looked better than Penn State's basketball stadium, because I happened to be at a local watering hole, and after our game, they retelevised it. I mean, after the doubleheader at Easton, they retelevised it, and I was watching it. But the Penn State game was on. They were playing Northwestern. So you see the 2 gymnasiums. Our gymnasium looked better on television than Penn State's did, although Penn State probably seats about 15,000, and we can get 3,000 in ours. 500. Yeah. And it isn't only the gym, but I've gone to productions at, I don't even know what they call the school anymore. It used to be Paxinosa, but it's Shawnee now, I guess. But anyway, I've been there, and they have an auditorium gymnasium facility packed to the rafters to see a Christmas show about, I can't remember what it was. And then I went to the auditorium at what used to be Shawnee, that is now Easton Middle School, and that auditorium blows you away, because we spent the money on that thing to make it as beautiful it is, and people who go there will tell you the same thing as they say about it. This is amazing that you thought enough about the people that go to school here. So, for those of you who aren't interested in any of this, send your kids to charter schools. or any number of other private institutions. And thank you for the time.
Quick comment to all of our, to everybody, and to all of our regular members that come out. The 20th of March, we'll be holding our committee meeting at Cheston Elementary School on South Side. So that's where we'll be at. Just a reminder.
Mr. Faneuil, I have 2 items for you. Last Saturday, and it's happened for many, many years in a row. The Easton Area High School in the district hosted the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science. And this is bringing together students from the 7th through 12th grades from Schuylkill, Berks, Lehigh, Carbon, and Northampton counties. And they present their science project. And that's rather important because science is something that people do, don't just read out of a textbook. So it's something that I've judged for probably over 25 years. It's with some measure of pride as a board member that I saw once again how well organized and well run the district took on this event, which is a large, large event. In times gone by, our fine local newspapers would have covered this event with a short story that would have appeared the next day. But so far that hasn't happened. I'm hoping that those fine people in the audience could put something up. In the session that I judged, it was Earth and Space Science for 7th and 8th graders. There were 14 presenters. And it was very interesting, but I would be happy to report and congratulate our own Brooke Santee. She's an 8th grader at Easton Area Middle School. Her teacher is Christy Clements. She gave a fabulous presentation that involved engineering principles. And in fact, for our small session, she had the highest score there. So, there are some very good things happening with respect to science being alive in this district, which makes me want to see on a future academic committee meeting the topic of science and the curriculum discussed, because I'm befuddled with why our high school had a 31% score on the PSSA testing that was most recently reported. Does not compute, shall we say, for me. So, if you have the opportunity next year to be a judge, you don't have to be a trained scientist to do it. You simply have to be interested in children and be able to listen to a logical presentation. The last item would be, I'll put a plug in for Jenna Broadhead when she opened up her discussion about Dr. Seuss. The best part of my day today was spent at Shawnee Elementary in Mrs. Rader's 2nd grade classroom, where I had the opportunity to revisit a favorite story, The Cat in the Hat. And you wouldn't believe how good you will feel about the mission of this district when you have 20, 25 little 2nd graders hanging on your every word. Now, I know it happens in school board meetings, but it was really positive. And I would say with the Founders Day celebration last night, and having the opportunity to go back into an elementary school and deal with little ones again, there's a lot of people counting on us to do the right thing. And it should make us really that much more engaged, all of us, public, the board, administrators, and teachers, to make sure the right things happen for those children, because they indeed are our future. So if you have a chance, this Friday, the elementary schools are looking for volunteers, and if you contact them, I guarantee you'll have the best part of your day. Thank you.
And with that, are there any other comments? We bring this to close on.
It's ready to close. I move that we close.
Do I have a second? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed?